Hey, we're BroPartisan Hacks.
Yo.
Yo. So, Reese, I found this interesting story. I don't know. I figured you might enjoy this.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
And just keep him down out of the screen, right? So you know how the L.A., San Francisco, New York had been on this trial to try and have social workers and other people come out with cops for non-criminal things, right? Well, apparently there's a problem that I wasn't aware of in New York with the homeless people basically just living on the subways.
You weren't aware of that?
I mean, apparently it's gotten really bad. So like you always kind of knew about it, you know. I mean, even in like when we took our trip to Portland, there was a guy who showed up and like got on the train with us as we were riding to the airport to leave, and like laid down and took a nap on the benches. And I was just like, oh, okay. But it was like the one guy, right? Apparently in New York, it looks like this.
Well, yeah. Well, think about why. Right? It's freezing.
It's freezing. It's freezing cold. It's warm underground. I get it. Now, the interesting thing about this story isn't necessarily that homeless people are taking over the subways. They're apparently getting pretty dangerous down there. There was a lady, the picture of the lady that was up on the screen just now, like was apparently like pushed in front of a train. There have been multiple shootings and stabbings and things like that have been going on. So they've really got to like, the mayor's kind of like, all right, we got to clean this up. And his effort was to basically enlist like school nurses and any nurse that they could find in the city to like help out with this, as far as like going with the cops to help clear out the subways. Squads of school nurses and outreach workers that join the cops to convince homeless people and mentally ill to accept help. To activate, some nurses are unhappy with it. This is ridiculous. We're short of school nurses to begin with, and now you're putting this task on us as well.
Here's the thing. One, they can't make you do it, right? If you're a school nurse, they can't force you to go do that. That's not happening, I'm sure.
I mean, they're all paid by the city. So
yeah, but you better be paying extra for that, and that's not an extra duties as assigned. That's more hours, right? That's not how that works, right? If that becomes a duty, just like I was talking about when we talked about training up the teachers to have guns in classes or whatever, you better pay for that. You better be paying me for that activity, because like it's not just another, duty within my 8 hours a day, right? Mm-hmm. That's extra. So like that's a whole nother job. This activity that you have here planned out.
Yeah, so I mean it harkens back again to that program I mentioned. It resembles the pilot program launched in early 2019 by Bill de Blasio before being canceled due to the $1 billion budget cut to the NYPD budget. Of course, here they lay it out, demanded by anti-cop activists in the following year. So they had this program, and then they blamed it on the budget cuts that the city council pushed through, rather than moving some other money around, right? Of course.
Right, because they have to still have their tanks.
Yeah.
So you gotta have the tank.
You gotta have the tanks. You can't not have the tanks. It's New York. They gotta be the best, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So it says they're seeking volunteers for psychologists and social workers. Training sessions set to begin on the last weeks, could be going on for 3 months or more.
So it does say volunteers. So it's not.
Yeah.
And I was telling you, when we were discussing this earlier, is that our nurses, our school nurses, are extremely overworked. We have like one school nurse for 3,000 kids, right? And that school nurse is in charge of everything COVID. Everything COVID related, who's sick, who's out, when they get to come back, whether or not they should be counted absent, etc., etc., etc. She's in charge. And she's the one person in charge to everything that has anything to do with COVID in our entire school. Right? Are you making faces?
He is.
So, and I was saying the trainer helps because he's got to get athletes back on the field. That's his job, is to get athletes on the field. But everything that he does runs through her. So, and I don't know what it's like in New York, but our school nurses are significantly overworked right now. It used to be a cake job, right? School nurse, what do they do?
Easy
Get
money.
somebody a Band-Aid, back to
Call
class.
the parents. I mean, worst case,
Call
you
the
call the
parents.
parents. Come get your kid. He's got
he's
lice.
He's not feeling well. Right. Like, this is a cake job. Come on, you do a hearing check once a year, and you're done. So
Nowadays.
now it's not. Okay.
You got COVID everything.
Yeah, and
Well,
they're in charge.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It's like they're trying to revive the program that they unfunded without refunding it. So if they're asking for volunteers, then there's still no money to be there. There's really not a plan. It sounds like there's no long-term solution. They're like doing this to get the public off their back.
But what
For the next 3 to 6 months or
what
whatever.
is your solution then? Where are you trying to push them to, right? So you don't want them on the subway. Now what?
You don't want them on the subway, and then there's people on the subway because they're afraid to stay in the shelters. So how do you clean up
they're
your shelters?
either afraid to stay in the shelters. And remember we talked about it a while back, how like, there's so many rules where like if you don't get into the shelter on time, you don't get in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if your job ends at 7 and you have to be at the shelter by 6, you're not getting in. And so now you've got to find somewhere to sleep tonight. And so, like, when you look for jobs, if you're staying at a shelter, you can only look for certain jobs. Okay, you got to go. Take your poppet. You're being obnoxious. If you're only looking for certain jobs, because if you don't get into the thing on time and you don't leave on time, then you don't get somewhere to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're kind of stuck. So now you have to figure out where you're going to sleep for the night. You have to take all of your shit with you all the time, everywhere. So imagine having to have all of your personal belongings with you 100% of the time. Now go find a job. Good luck. You know what I mean? Like, think about this. Hey, think about this. So I mean, like, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, just go get a job, go get a job, go get a job. Shit ain't that easy when you have nowhere to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So, I it's cold in New York. It's February, right? It's cold here. I can't imagine having to sleep outside every night. Fuck that. Like, I mean, I run by the tent cities. I don't run, but I mean, obviously I don't run.
Obviously,
But I drive. I drive by the tent cities. Like I see them. they they don't get shellacked as much in the winter as they do in the summer by the class trader police.
They're left alone.
They really are in the winter. Like, in the summer they run them off, but in the winter they kind of let them just try and be warm.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
It is interesting.
That's
I
it.
I don't because
Unless you got something.
yeah.
What?
I'm just like I just like I said, I don't know what your homeless, other than giving them houses. I don't know what the solution is. If you don't want them in front of you, if you don't want them in your face, what's your solution?
Well, even giving them houses, like, that's been tried.
No, it hasn't.
In San Francisco, it has. There's more empty
Where?
houses. In San Francisco, yeah, they had several programs to try giving people houses and homes. And a lot of people wouldn't go live in them.
When was this?
Housing First was a program in San Francisco. This is dated 2021. So, the promise of Housing First philosophy, San Francisco is one of the first major cities to adopt and give someone a permanent place to live. And provide convenient access to care and resources to cascade positive outcomes that will follow. Now, this is a story, they gave it specifically about someone, but it's... numerous cities have run pilots showing the efficacy of Housing First policies at a small scale. Denver did it. Of those, 86% remained in their homes after 1 year, 77% after 3 years. So it looks like sometimes it's been successful in a lot of cases. So at least
86% sounds pretty good.
It sounds pretty good. I mean, but like you said, Denver's cold.
But from what I understand, we've talked previously about the military housing and how that was constructed specifically for military. And I gotta tell you, like and that was in California, and it apparently it worked. I'm looking for something that like it keeps talking about like anecdotal stuff instead of giving me, because it's just talking about how expensive housing is in California and why they,
why people go homeless in
why
California.
Why it's so prevalent there, because California homes are ridiculous. So
Never can spin it. Never can spin it. And it's my water.
That's my water, yes. Thank you.
That's
Project Home Key. 43 bedroom suites that can house families with children.
Where is he?
There he is.
There he is.
Sorry for researching on screen.
It's all good. I have a distraction right here. Just spin this.
Well, this is from
I know, right?
this is from December 2021, so like 2 months ago. But they're planning on spending another $46 million to buy a previously a dormitory for it was called the San Francisco Conservatory of Music and the California College of Arts, and they have their own student housing now, and so now they're buying this building to try and house some of the homeless people. But it looks like it's built for homeless families. And so
yeah, there's another story I just pulled up that was like they got something of like 54.7 million to like convert a hotel or something like that. So
that's it. That's the same thing. It's 46 plus 8.5 from another different project. So the city is putting up the majority of the money, and then they're getting another grant from another problem.
Oh,
but
and then there's this story.
You know, but that's from October, I think.
Yeah, maybe this was the
so
one.
so yeah, it's prior to the December decision, and so my point is that there are more empty houses than there are homeless people in America. And so what do you do, right? And so one person posed the question, do you just eminent domain those houses and take them from people that are just sitting on them? And my answer to that is yes, fuck those people. Landlords produce no value. Let me say it again. Landlords have no value. What do? They own a thing. They are modern day lords. The word landlord, lord. And we are their serfs to give them tribute. To pay our tax to them for owning something. They do no work. They produce no value. And all they do is drive prices up to where people can't afford housing. That's how I feel about that. Fuck those people.
It's funny. Well, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because it was done in history. There was a point there was an area that banned both usury, which is the act of charging interest, any interest, and being a landowner, or not
being
providing
a landowner.
Not providing labor.
Okay.
Do you know who it was?
Who's that?
1935 Germany.
Nah, they just banned it for Jews.
No. Like, usury was out. They made it illegal. As well as, like, being a landlord and not providing labor. Like, you couldn't make money being a landlord. They would arrest you.
All right. Well, I still agree with it. I don't give a fuck who it was.
No, and they were successful. Like, that's early on. That was what brought them out of their depression. And it like they took over the banks and they said, all right, here's the new money, here's the new currency. It's all labor based, and this is how it is. Of course, then they put people to making bombs and everything else, and there's a lot of other stuff that went along with that made it not so pleasant. But the idea itself was successful, monetarily and financially speaking. So, just putting that out there. That's all I had.
Yeah, like
Yeah, no, you don't care. I don't. Like I said, it worked, and that's the thing that like people, you know, they showed that you can be separated from the global banking system and be successful. Like that's what that was. And everything else was demonized, but most people forget that like they did a lot. Like 'cause they're economically flourished. So there it is. That's all I have for this one.
Yeah. All right.